Jeremiah, I'm drinking an iced coffee.
Yeah?
You know what goes really, really well with iced coffee?
What's that?
Hot takes.
Mwah, mwah, mwah.
Figured you were going to like that.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Everyone, welcome back to another Andrew-tastic episode of Empire Radio. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Andrew.
And we are back with a special video because
And I'm Drew.
this might be our first time pre-recorded episode for a future time when we don't have an episode to do in a week for whatever reason.
Yep.
And so we are actually recording this on the evening of 4th of July,
Hey, yo.
2023. And so Drew is out of town on a little family vacay, as the kids would say.
Why did you put that in quotes?
Because vacay is short for vacation.
Oh, I was going to say, but he's literally on a vacation. But no, I get what you're doing.
Yeah. So, so we're going to, and Andrew was free this week because the missus is out of town. So,
Yep.
he has some time to do some extra stuff for the podcast. So, we're recording an extra episode. So, this could be November, October. This could be 2025. You never know when this is going to come out.
That would be insane.
But yes, so we were brainstorming ideas of what we had a million ideas, what we could talk about, something fun, interesting that we could just throw in. And Andrew had a great idea.
Yep.
So what's that idea? What are we doing tonight?
We are talking hot takes. Star Wars takes. Yeah. So I love a good hot take. Jeremiah's had a few pretty good ones over the course of the podcast, you know.
Other than the big one, what are the other hot takes I've had?
You talk about the melon. The melon one is the one that haunts me to this day.
No, I'm talking about first half of The New Hope. That's my.
Oh yeah. No, but
that's my main one.
That is the hot take. Like that is that's gonna go down in Empire Radio history. Like so. But yeah, I love a good hot take, and I don't even know how I came up with the idea. Maybe I was watching a YouTube video and someone said it or something like that. But I was like, oh, Star Wars hot takes. Like that would be a good idea. So I've compiled a number of them that we're just going to go through. Some of these probably won't be that big of a discussion. Famous last words there. But some of them are really interesting and really valid. So, which is weird because some of these I don't want to agree with, but then I read them and I was like, oh, you know what? This person kind of has a point. So before we get into these, so many of these, I've found a lot of these from Reddit. So I've got some from Reddit. I've got some from random articles. Like I literally Googled Star Wars hot takes and just kind of went down a rabbit hole and pulled a few of them together. There's one in here from a YouTube video. And I'm going to make sure I don't have credit for any of the other ones. I am going to give credit to this person because they have a pretty sizable following on YouTube. And it was a video that they had of like 6 hot takes. And one of them, the other ones were fine, but there was one that I was like, oh, this is spicy. This is really spicy. And I want to bring this up. So we'll get to that. I've got one from me. We're going to cover one eventually, one from me directly. I think Jeremiah has one.
I have one. It has like 2 parts to it, but it's one type of thing. So
okay. So Jeremiah has one. And then I actually like randomly got one from our friend Tanner today too, which is interesting because his was, so as I was going through and finding these hot takes, I was on my phone and I would screenshot them And then I would go out, like going through the screenshots later and pulling the ones that I liked. And I did this like 2 nights ago. And then today when I was talking with Tanner, he said his. I was like, oh, that's a really good one. And then I realized that I had screenshotted, like, it wasn't the same wording, but it was like the same thing someone had said in an article. I was like, oh, look, that's the only one that's ever come up twice. So he must be onto something. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. There are 2 in here for each of mine and Jeremiah's favorite Star Wars characters related to the characters. I did that just for us.
I'm scared.
Just so that
my girl, they're gonna tear my girl down.
Yo, it's gonna be It's spicy.
Uh-oh.
It's spicy. It's well stated, but spicy nonetheless. I've got one in there for Thrawn too. Don't worry. I didn't want you to have to bear that pain on your own. It's okay. So yeah, we're just gonna go through these. They're all over the place. But I will say that it was quite difficult to find like actual hot takes, because like, first of all, half the people, and I mean no disrespect to these people, don't really know what a hot take is. It would just be like, I never want to hear the name Skywalker again. Like, that's not really a hot take. That's just kind of your opinion because you're tired of hearing the Skywalker name. And then so many of them were like, the sequels suck. And I'm like, that's not a hot take. Like, if you're the majority of people, it's like, it's not a hot take, you know? There were some that were like, one came up, and I don't think I put this one in the list, but there was one that was like Rogue One. Did I put, I think I did put a Rogue One in here, but like, it's a little bit different. But one was like, Rogue One is the worst Disney Star Wars movie. And I was like, that's a hot take, but it's also just blatantly wrong. So I'm not going to put it in there. So like, it was actually more difficult than I thought. And so all of these hot takes are defendable to a certain degree. Okay. And some of them I included the explanations. Some of them I just took them at face value because we can just talk about it.
Right.
So yeah, any questions before we dive into these?
So your list, is it ranked in a certain thing, or is it all random?
So most of these are pretty random. They're kind of all over the place. I'm saving the ones for our characters from our characters, or the individual people that submitted them. And then the video one, there are 2 that I'm kind of saving all of the more impactful ones towards the end.
Okay.
So it's going to be kind of like a big group of just like a bunch of random ones, because it's really hard to like rank them. But then the ones that I'll save towards the end are like either the most spicy ones, or they're probably going to cause the most discussion, if that makes sense.
Right.
So,
all right, well, let's jump right into it.
All right. Number 1, the prequel movies offer the most intriguing and entertaining setting of all 3 trilogies.
I don't think that's a hot take. I agree with that.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Some, like
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
Some of these are defensible. I would say that some people, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to put this one first, because like, some people would be offended by that.
Right.
They probably would. But like, for me, I'm like, yeah, I agree, you know, like, obviously. But then, so here's the thing though. It's also the most fleshed out. Think about that. Like, it, you know, the other trilogy's got 3 movies, yes. But I feel like between Clone Wars and like all of the other media we got, there's a ton of books, like canon books about it too, and stuff like that. Like, I feel like because of the limitations of the time period of the original trilogy, and then how Disney handled the sequel trilogy, we just got naturally the most content for the prequels.
Right.
Like I feel like there were like the most Lego sets, the most action figures, the most books. Clone Wars in and of itself is like a massive advantage that trilogy has over the other 2 trilogies, you know? So, yeah.
I think it also is going, obviously, like if you're like a fan of the original Star Wars fan, where you first got the original trilogy and then you got the prequels.
Yeah.
Like, the prequels, like the universe is bigger, because in the original trilogy, it's okay, you're on Tatooine, it's just sand, and then you're on a bunch of like ships, like the Millennium Falcon, and then
It's a pretty
Death Star.
small scope. Yeah.
It's very small. Same with, Empire Strikes Back. It's a lot of it's in a ship, or you're just in a little like foggy
Yeah. I mean,
swamp.
it's
It's
Hoth.
it's simple
Yeah.
stuff, and like you get Bespin opens up a little bit because like you see the Cloud City and you get kind of like a scope of something bigger and like
Yeah.
clean air. And then like Return of the Jedi, you get Endor, which you kind of feel more immersed into like a actual like planet. But like prequel is like you're seeing all these different places, you're seeing all these different species, and like life like this is completely different than what was before. So it's like,
Yeah.
what was the original hot take line? Was
The
it worded?
prequel movies offer the most intriguing and entertaining setting of all three trilogies.
Yeah, even setting would also include like story, like where it takes place in a timeline. So like
Yeah.
it's something that like people
Really,
dreamed about their whole lives. Like, what were the
yeah.
Clone Wars? What was it like before the Empire? And so it's like people
Yeah.
get to like dive into that when they came out.
Well, it's interesting too. It's really interesting to me because I think part of that was a limitation of the technology, right?
Right.
Like George Lucas could just do more. Like he could do more with ships, set building, CGI, the ships flying between worlds. And I don't fault the original trilogy for that. Or, well, and it's funny because the sequel trilogy had even more. And I'm not going to get into that. But I will say that, like, I think the advantage goes to the prequels because of the abilities that George Lucas had at his disposal towards the end of the 90s when CG was becoming a thing, and all of a sudden, because like what was it? I don't remember which of the documentaries. I think it was the one for the Phantom Menace, but he was like, I'm finally getting to make the movies that I always set out like I wanted to make, but I couldn't in the 70s and 80s because of the limitations. Like these were the movies, like this was the standard of movie he was hoping to make the entire time. The technology just hadn't caught up yet, So
And the only glimpse we have of what it could have been was the 97 like CGI editions,
right.
which are I believe are the ones that are on Disney Plus. So it's like
Yeah.
you can't. It's hard to see the original trilogy without the added CGI, like the giant dinosaur walking through the streets of Tatooine.
It's so funny that you say that because that is literally the one thing I remember of all of the CG editions. I'm like, that thing that like goes up on its hind legs when the
Yeah.
speeder flies by, like that is the one thing that I remember. So
Yeah, there's like the ones with like Bespin, like extra scenes in Bespin where there's like CGI flying ships going through, and I'm like, this looks terrible. But
well,
anyway, next up, what's the next one?
all right. So this is a hot take. People only like the Clone Wars because they grew up with it. Humanizing the clone army is a bizarre creative choice spurred by the need for extra protagonists in a kid show. I will say this. The Clone Wars, there are some really dull moments in the Clone Wars. In fact, for me, most of the episodes that are like really political and have to do with senators and stuff, I sound so cliche saying this, but I'm like, skip them.
Bro, really?
Some, not all of them, but some of them. I'm like, dude, I don't care what's happening with Clovis. Like, I get that Anakin's jealous and all, and there's some stuff going on, but like, dude, just give me a lightsaber fight or something. Like I will say I disagree with the whole humanizing the clone things humanizing the clones is a bizarre move. I disagree with that. I think that was the right move. But like, there are definitely some parts of the Clone Wars that I look back and I'm like,
and most of that is from like the first two seasons when.
That's true. No, that's true.
But like, But like people love the Clone Wars because they grew up with it. Like I don't agree with that because if you go on YouTube right now, you have adults who are watching the Clone Wars for the first time, doing reactions to every episode,
Yeah.
and they fall in love with the show just as much as people who grew up with it when they were originally released.
Yeah.
And if anything, people like it more because they're adults and they can understand and connect things better than when you were a kid.
Yep.
Like
It's interesting that you say that too, because I feel the same way about the prequels for that reason. Where like when I watched when I watched the Phantom Menace in theaters when I was freaking 4 or 5. I actually don't think I even went and saw it in theaters. Maybe we got it on VHS. I don't remember. But when I saw it the first time, I was like, yo, I have no idea what these guys are talking. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are talking about the negotiations and the living force and stuff. And I'm like, dude, when are they pulling out their lightsabers? Like, and then they did it. And I'm like, yeah, you know? And so like, but now going back and watching it as an adult, I'm like, oh, no, this is really interesting. I never thought a trade blockade would be fun, but here I am.
It's kind of funny because, like on Empire Radio canon, Episode 1 is my bottom movie.
Yeah.
But like since we've been doing this for over 3 years and talking about stories and analyzing plots and characters,
yeah,
like my list would be different, I think. And I think Episode 1 would be a lot higher up on the list now than originally.
Okay.
So like
I actually have a segue there, but I'm gonna hold it for just a second.
So like I could like, so to agree with the hot take, I disagree that it's only a nostalgic thing because people grew up with it.
Yeah.
And as far as like the humanizing the clone things, this might be a hot take, but like, but you know how people have always complained about, like, oh, they just made up the sequel trilogy as they went. They had no plan. Like, if you really think about it, that's true with all of Star Wars. And I think
no, okay.
Yeah,
I would exclude the first 6 movies out of that because Lucas had a plan for those.
That's not true, because
he had the outlines done of the stories.
No, when you look at the storylines of like the original idea for the original movie, like things are completely different.
Well,
Han Solo, like they didn't even know if Han Solo was going to be in this third movie. Like that's why they put him in carbonite. Like we don't know what to do. Like if he's not coming back, this is how he's out.
well,
Luke and Leia were never supposed to be brother and sister. They just added that at the end, like for fun. Like
I mean, it's true.
They're always doing this, and I think with the clones, if you watch episodes 2 and 3, just the movies, they are very robotic.
Yeah,
and so like they lack personality.
Yeah,
and so then going through the Clone Wars, they humanize them. Like that's a shift. Like they change that.
Yeah,
and obviously that's because they want to make stories, but
yeah,
that was a shift that they did just to like make stories, not because that's what George Lucas necessarily had in mind from the start.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, yeah, and I disagree. Like, aside from what I said about there being dull moments, like I completely disagree with you liked it because you grew up with it. Because like I didn't really, like quote grow up with it. Like I was growing up at the time, and I watched probably the first 3, maybe 3.5, 4 seasons, like when it was airing on Cartoon Network for pretty consistently. But then like I dropped off for a while. I remember like things got busy or whatever, and I didn't see the rest of the series until much later, so like a year or 2 later. And so like a lot of it for me was going back and rewatching it and forming opinions like as an older, teenager, I guess you would say, like high school age. There's some really good stories in there. And I think to the point of humanizing the clones, I think it makes Order 66 more impactful.
Right.
So, because instead of just a bunch of clones, nameless clones that like, basically are basically battle droids. Because like in Revenge of the Sith, it's like, oh no, like they trusted them, and now Aayla Secura is being like shot way too many times underneath that mushroom. It's like that sucks. But like you really you only feel for the Jedi to a certain level, or to a certain dimension. You know what I'm saying? But with the Clone Wars in context, you're like, oh, they were friends. They were friends. Yeah,
Right.
So I get it. I see how someone might think it's bizarre, but I also totally get it. Speaking of the Phantom Menace, you were just talking about the Phantom Menace.
Right.
This is another one. The Phantom Menace has aged the best of the 3 prequels. Hot take.
I wonder what they mean by aged.
So if you, I take it as, this one actually was one when I was looking through Reddit, didn't have a description with it or an explanation. I take it as if you were to watch all 3 of the movies, this is the one. It's the one that looks the best.
Looks,
It
so is it just
like
visually?
looks, and I would say the way that I would interpret it is it looks, sounds, it comes wrapped in the best package, I would say. I would agree with this.
Really?
And here's why. The Phantom Menace, though there was a lot, so the CG is really CG, and I get that there's some moments where it looks rough. However, the Phantom Menace had much more practical effects and practical sets than the other 2 did. Because like Attack of the Clones was when they really started. Like Attack of the Clones was like a lot of blue screen, and then Revenge of the Sith was basically Revenge of the blue screen. So like give or take. So like the Phantom Menace they were still using miniatures. Like the Republic cruiser, the red one coming in the beginning, that's a miniature. They were still using lots of like really elaborate sets and stuff. And so for me, watching that movie from start to finish, it's still it's like all of the best parts of the practicality of the original trilogy, but it holds up better. It looks better now than the original trilogy does, if that makes sense.
If you're doing it from that, sure. Like it looks more like they're actually in these environments and they're actually like, sure.
I mean, and Jar Jar doesn't look bad. Like 2023, he does not look bad.
Right.
So,
but I think that when you're looking at everything that every movie of that trilogy offers, I don't think it holds. All 3 of them, I think, still holds up.
Sure.
But like,
sure, yeah.
I think that statement, I wouldn't just look at just this physical sets or whatever. Like I would look at everything, and so like I feel like that one holds up the least because it has the least amount of action, and like
interesting, really,
because like because you have the pod race and you have the duel and the space battle at the end. Like those are
you have those
are the 2 main, and then like the ground battle with the battle droids. But like like those are like the big action. Everything else is there's politics. They're eating stuff in like the slate, like what's his face's house, like or just sitting there eating. He catches his tongue when he tries to eat the food. Like that's what you get. Like, oh, the storm's coming, Annie. Like like you get a lot of it's just like simple, like these are what these people are experiencing on like a day-to-day basis type of thing.
Yeah.
And you're experiencing like the politics of it. So there's not as much action. And so it's like now if you're looking at like the greater themes and stuff, then yeah, obviously it's better. Because like I said, I would rank that movie higher on my list now because I see the themes and the story more clearly than I did over 3 years ago when we started this podcast. So like, but there's a lot more that episodes 2 and 3 add to the overall story of Star Wars than episode 1. But like episode 1 is like it's like this, it's the starting point, it's the seed that planted it. It's the most important part in Star Wars. But there's much more going on.
I get it. I will say that The Phantom Menace, I think, is my favorite prequel. So maybe I'm a bit biased, but I read that one. I was like, yeah, it does hold up really, really well. I mean, to be fair, all 3 of the movies like visually hold up extremely well, but there is something about miniatures that like I love miniatures. I love them. If they're done well, it looks way better than CGI. Right. They have their limitations. Don't get me wrong.
What's that word? Like when using a practical, like when you change the camera angle, like
parallax.
Parallax, yeah. Like you get that parallax that you don't get with matte painting or whatever. So
it is what it is. But okay. Okay, we're jumping to the sequels. We're jumping into Rise of Skywalker all the way. We're going all the way. Rey accepting the name Palpatine would have been more thematically fitting instead of Skywalker, since it would be a statement on shaping your own destiny despite the legacy of your family.
I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think a lot of people would be happier with that movie.
Dude, I would have been like 25% happier with that movie if she had done that. That was the dumbest. I'm so sorry. That was the rant. My rant was loading up. I could feel it. That was the dumbest thing. Like,
but remember that article you sent me a few weeks ago about Anakin was the one who chose Rey, and therefore that makes her a Skywalker?
Yeah, I do. It still doesn't make it any easier. I remember being in the theater. And like I had enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker pretty well. I had enjoyed it. After The Last Jedi, I was like, this is a more enjoyable experience for me. And then it got to that part, and I remember she said that, and I was like, way to just biff an ending. Like, like you had me in the last half, and then she was like, Rey Skywalker, and I'm like, that's not how the freaking that's not how it works. That's not how the Force works. But anyways, there's a lot of really good stuff about that movie. Don't get me wrong. I will go to bat for those movies if I need to, but that is one part that I cannot go to bat for.
Yeah, I just I want to know. There's that YouTube channel that does like, the pitch meeting for movies.
Yeah.
I just want to see that part. Maybe that video does that. Like, I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen I've watched a bunch of his videos, but not one for that.
But I wonder like what the pitch was for that idea to like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Fans will love that. Like, they just need, okay, I know they'll never do this.
Yep.
But they need like fans from just a group of like 20 fans that are all different ages and have different preferences, and they're like on like the storyboard team. They're not on the team, but they're there to observe, they're there to listen, and then they can have a comment card at the end. And they can engage
card, yeah.
They can engage at the end, like, okay, we thought this was a great idea, but these 20 people universally said that this sucks, so we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But I know they can't do that because spoilers and
it would get leaked. They would have to sign like hardcore NDAs, like prison for 30 years if you leak something type stuff. But yeah, it is what it is. All right. Yoda and Obi-Wan should have trained Leia too. / her and Luke should have shared the focus of the original trilogy together. So the person was saying there is no reason why Leia did not get trained alongside Luke. And I get it. I get the whole like she's off doing her thing with the Organas and until they all died, but and then she was basically with the gang. But like I get the whole like they had to keep her identity a secret thing. But also,
yeah.
We're looking back at it. We're looking back at it through the lens of having the entire story. So we have to keep that in mind.
Right.
At the time, going back to what you said, George Lucas might not have even thought that far ahead.
Right.
So
I think if we're just looking at it on the story that we have and not like conspiracy theory that it wasn't what Lucas wanted to do just because they didn't think about it. But like in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series,
yep,
there's this scene when Owen brings back the starship toy. Like, you need to leave us alone. And Obi-Wan's like, when the time is right, the boy needs to be trained. It's like in Obi-Wan's mind, from when he got baby Luke and brought him to Tatooine, he was always in his mind like, eventually this boy needs to be trained.
Yeah.
Whereas with Leia, she wasn't with a Jedi protection. She was on her own things. Like, that was like, for Obi-Wan's perspective, that was an option because he didn't think that he'd probably ever see her.
That's fair.
And then,
That's fair.
having those few days with her and protecting her, like, knows that she's very capable without using the Force. Like, she doesn't need to become a Jedi to be a leader and to help the galaxy.
That's true.
He saw that in her.
That's fair.
And with Yoda, well, he was just
dude
a bachelor on Dagobah, and Luke came to him, like, which was Obi-Wan's idea.
So would Yoda have ever made an appearance had Obi-Wan not died? Like, I don't know. Honestly, he might have just been chilling for the rest of his life, just in a hut somewhere.
Right. But I do agree that it would have been cool if they were both trained.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been cool. And like, we just get a little glimpse of it in episode 9.
Yeah.
With a flashback. I'm like, dang it, that was so cool to see.
Yeah. Well, she does get trained by Luke in the EU over the course of many years. So, like, it's not to the same level, obviously, because, like, she's, like, training, but she's also being a leader, and she's also fighting, so it was like, it's kind of like her side gig was training in the Force, but, like, he trained her enough to be able to defend herself, and she had a lightsaber, and so it's cool, but I feel like that was a missed opportunity for sure.
Yeah, it would have been cool to, like, see them, like, side by side fighting.
Yeah.
But there's everyone wants a Star Wars What If series. Like,
dude, I would love that so much.
It'd be so cool. Just to, but yeah, whatever. On that note though, just like something that I guess I have heard before, but someone said it more forceful in like a meme or something I saw the other day. But the idea that R2-D2 knew the whole time that Luke was Anakin / Vader's kid and never said anything.
That is actually, it's a very valid point.
Because we all know that R2-D2's mind or whatever was never wiped.
And he was there.
He was there from episode 1 to episode 9.
And he was there when they were born, wasn't he?
They were born.
Yeah.
So he was there when Leia was born and when Leia died.
That's wild.
And he never said anything.
What a freaking guy. Wow.
I mean, like, if you need a ride or die, he was never going to snitch on you. Like, R2 is like, dude, your boy. But
yeah. All right. This is kind of a hot take. Every Jedi that survives Order 66 is watering down the point of A New Hope. If there were multiple Jedi running around, they should have just put together a team to take out Vader and Palpatine. So I get this. There's a part of me that understands this. But I also see this as we had a story, a very, like contained start to finish story that has now been expanded on in the, 50 years, 45, 50 years since it was originally done. Partially because of content. People want more content, and partially because people just want to tell new stories. But I also get it. Because think about if Yoda, Obi-Wan, well, R.I.P. Kanan, but Ezra might. The whole Rebels thing could have been different. So, like, think about Obi-Wan, Yoda, Kanan, Ezra. Well, Ezra probably wouldn't have been trained, but Kanan, Ahsoka, Quinlan Vos. Like, imagine if they all got together and did a covert mission into the palace. They could have taken Palpatine together. If Yoda by himself almost had him in Revenge of the Sith, I think that they could have taken him and Vader if they had enough people.
Him and Vader at the same time?
Well, because let's go back.
If it was one by one, maybe that group of that 4 or 5.
Let's go back to the verses. You remember the verses rules where we were like, well, if this person could defeat this person.
Yeah.
So if Ahsoka bested Vader on Malachor, if Ahsoka bested Vader on Malachor, she almost kills him by herself. Yoda almost takes out Palpatine by himself. Theoretically, the two of them together by themselves could have been enough. But if you if you add in Obi-Wan, you add in Kanan, like Quinlan Voss, he's a Jedi Master. Like all of these people that we're finding out that survived, Cal Kestis, even just put them all in put the Jedi Avengers together. They could have done it. Would have been way less of a story. It would have been over pretty fast. But
okay, well, one, I think in episode 3, Palpatine was holding back against Yoda a little bit. Just like with him fighting Mace Windu, he was toying with Mace Windu for a while and just waiting so Anakin could come. I think
I agree
because he killed those other 3 Jedi in 2 seconds. He could have killed. I know in Revenge of the Sith novelization is way better. Blah blah.
I mean,
blah.
to be fair, in the Revenge of the Sith novelization, they don't last very much longer.
Right.
I mean, the outcome is still the same. So,
but I think Palpatine, yes, wanted to kill Yoda, but I felt like maybe the environment also hindered his ability to do it. But like if they're on standing ground, like flat ground, I think Palpatine could have taken out Yoda a lot faster. But like, so like, have you heard like the thing like where, you know, say like one horse can pull 10,000 pounds, like 2 horses don't pull 20,000 pounds, they can pull like 30,000 pounds. Like that teamwork makes it so that, yes, that would be true about the Jedi teaming up. But I think Palpatine and Vader fighting side by side is more than just Vader and Palpatine singly added together.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah,
and I think that Vader and Palpatine next to each other would almost be undefeatable with the Jedi that were available, especially if you're going like 10, 15 years after the fact when even more have died. Like Cal Kestis couldn't do anything right after Revenge of the Sith because he was
that's true.
12 years old.
That's true.
Or however old. So like, same with Kanan. So I think, but the statement was the survivors watered down the meaning behind A New Hope, right? What was
Correct.
it?
Yeah.
So I would agree with that because one of the first things that we talked about, one of our, like might have been our first Cantina discussion, was like what was like to bring the balance to the Force or whatever it was. And my point was, when we get to A New Hope, you have 2 Sith, and then you have Obi-Wan and Yoda.
Yep.
And those are the 2 sides. So that's the balance is the Force has been balanced because of what Vader did.
Yep.
And so he fulfilled the prophecy of the Chosen One.
Yeah.
And so I agree with that. Now that we keep getting more and more Jedi, now we don't know. Like we don't know who's there after at Revenge or at A New Hope. We know Obi-Wan, Yoda. And we know Ahsoka, but she's not a Jedi, so maybe she could count as middle ground.
That's fair.
And Ezra, he's out there, but like he was never like an actual Jedi. He was just a Padawan, so does that count?
Yeah.
The guy that's going to be in the Ahsoka series, Balin, the old guy, he was, I guess, a former Jedi.
Yeah.
Which, so this is a little side note. A few months ago, remember Daniel Contreras used to be like one of our OG fans.
Yeah.
He joined the Discord and he started sending in some voicemails during the like Mando and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And he's like had a theory that what if that Balin guy was Obi-Wan Kenobi's little baby brother that we heard about in the Kenobi series.
Oh.
But the details came out that that's not how it works. He was actual Jedi, blah, blah,
Sure.
blah. But that would have been so cool if Palpatine stole Obi-Wan's baby
Yeah.
brother and stuff. But like, so yeah, we don't know how many Jedi are out there. Like, I don't know. My theory holds up a little bit, but like, anytime they could drop a book and there's like 10 Jedi like hanging out on some beach somewhere, like,
yeah,
but
on some beach, just on the other side of Scarif, on the opposite side that the Empire was on, just hanging out. All right.
And they couldn't escape because they had the shield gate around the whole.
Oof, that would suck.
Yeah, we got a safe place, guys.
Give it a year. Speaking of which, Rogue One is not that great. People just think it's great because everyone dies and it's dark and edgy.
Yeah, that's the point. That's why it's so great. Yeah, that's good.
I would
disagree with that.
Yeah, I disagree. I've heard points where someone was like, okay, I'll try to explain this in the way that they did. So every time someone talks about how great Rogue One is, no one ever mentions the characters. It's always the this scene or this fight or this moment, the Vader moment. Like Vader is kind of an exclusion, but like they talk about how the quote the characters are super forgettable, which I don't agree with. But apparently, like a lot of people when they talk about it, they're like the Scarif space battle, which is absolutely freaking incredible. You know, the all the battles and everything towards the end are amazing. But nobody really talks about like the beginning of the movie or the characters themselves or like, so I get it. The beginning of the movie for me is a little slow. It's a little slow, but it's beautiful. I think the cinematography is some of the best since Disney took over by a long shot. But I also think the characters are really good. It's hard because they do all die. That for me at least, it's difficult for me to stay as invested because I'm like, well, all these characters, they're gonna die. They're all done, you know. But like, it's funny. They said it's because everyone dies and it's edgy and dark, and I think that's also like literally the point,
right?
You know, like the point. That's just the point of the movie.
Right.
Like, people are going to give up their lives for the greater good.
I could agree maybe that the character development is not like the strongest point of the movie. Like,
yeah.
But I think if you focus on Galen Erso and Jyn Erso, that relationship, you see that from start to end. Like, I really like when they're trying to look for the plans, like in that Blockbuster tower that they have there, where they're looking for all the tapes. Like,
it's like a video store.
Yeah, it's like Stardust. Like, how do you know? Well, that's me. Like, that's the nickname. Like, so that's a good part, I think. But I think now with the addition of the Andor series, I think that it's at least going to add to Andor's story. For when you watch that movie, it's going to feel a lot different. But then there's also characters in Andor that we see in the movie as well. So we see like his best bud that he escapes prison from. He's in Rogue One. You see Two Tubes and Forrest Whitaker. What's his character's name?
Two Tubes.
The skull face. Two Tubes.
Oh! I thought you were talking about Saw Gerrera's like mask thing that he wears.
Saw Gerrera, that's his name. But yeah, they call that one guy Two Tubes, right?
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I think with Andor, the character development and the emotional connection to Rogue One is going to be elevated. So like I'd be curious to see whoever wrote that hot take, like if they watched Andor first 2 seasons, then watch the movie, how they would.
Some of these were a few years old,
right?
And I will say that like I did not think twice about casting Andor before that show. Like,
right,
he was one of those,
like, who cares about Andor? Why do we have a series about him?
Like, I literally am. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember what episode it is, but I'm pretty sure I am on the record in this podcast saying, like, I don't really care about the Andor show because I'm not invested in. Because I remember I was saying like the Obi-Wan show was the one that I was most excited for because I wasn't really invested in Andor, and now it ended up being a complete. It surprised everyone. Let's just be real, but. Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that's hard that we have to keep in mind is that these movies, the standalone movies specifically, dealt with characters that only had a single movie to develop.
Right.
So that's a huge disadvantage for someone like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who has 4, for Luke, who has 3, for Leia, who has like 3 in the Obi-Wan show. You know, like there's more time to spend with these characters to grow more familiar with them. So of course the characters are going to be more forgettable if you've only got 2 hours with them. You know, like I don't remember, like I remember Chirrut because of Donnie Yen, and I remember Donnie Yen because of It Man. You know,
Right.
but like Blaze. See, I don't even remember.
I always get it confused. I always say
You see what I'm saying? So it's
things.
like I liked them as characters, but because I only got a movie with them, you know,
Yeah,
they're at a disadvantage.
We need to have a Chirrut Blaze like sitcom style on Jeddah.
I would enjoy that.
Series of just like I go single camera set them like in the shenanigans. That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, that was an interesting one. This one I pulled in honor of Drew, who is not here to defend this. So, sucks to suck. Boba Fett has always been a weak character, no more than an extra.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think.
Yeah, dude.
Because he was just someone that people thought looked cool, and then therefore
I feel really bad for saying that, but I completely agree. If you don't take the EU into account, because in the EU he gets super BA. Like
right.
in the EU, he is a fully fledged, like full fleshed out character. He's like the John Wick of the Star Wars universe in the
Right.
EU. But if you don't take that into account, because it's technically not canon, it's like he shows up in Empire, super cool dude, gets yeeted into the Sarlacc. Like that's literally the lamest thing in Return of the Jedi for me. Is like Boba Fett, and then he's like gone. And then like I feel like if you just watched the original trilogy and then saw him in Mando and Book of Boba Fett, you would be like, where did this character come from? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's the same character, but it seems like two completely different people.
Right.
So, I agree.
Yeah. Well,
it sucks, but
sorry,
I
Drew.
agree. Sorry, Drew. I feel like that's like heretical. Like, I feel like that's a little sacrilege saying that about Boba Fett because he's an icon.
Right.
But maybe if Book of Boba Fett had gone differently, I would have defended this more.
Right.
But it is what it is. All right. Speaking of the TV shows, Grogu isn't a character. He's a plot device.
Yep. and more so, he's there to sell merch.
Yeah. So the first part of that, the person was talking about how they just like didn't like Grogu at all. And their reasoning was he's not a character. He's a plot device. And I'm not going to lie, because they brought him back in Book of Boba Fett, my enjoyment for him went from I enjoy him because he's a character and because he's a part of Mando's life and he's cute, to now just because he's cute. I'm like, there were a few times during Mando season 3 that I was like, I don't want him here. And I know it sounds really bad, but I'm like, now we have to figure out the logistics of like how he's going to wear a helmet. And like, he's a completely different species. Like, because you kept him in, the logistics that I'm thinking about as an adult, I'm like, this is too stressful. Like, now he's got to figure out all this stuff. We got to train him. He's got to learn how to talk and all this stuff. And I'm like, he should have just gone on. And that should have been the point of season 2, right? Mando has to get him back to the Jedi. He does that. Okay, sick. There you go. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably an unpopular opinion, but
no, I think a lot of people would agree that they shouldn't have brought him back. And if they did bring him back, don't bring him back in a separate show that's not Mando.
Yeah.
Or like you see him in season 4 because Luke is responding to Grand Admiral Thrawn, like taking over the galaxy, like, and Grogu's by his side. Like, that would make sense. Where like,
yeah,
all the different plot points are coming together in the one climax, and Grogu happens to be like, that's fine. Like, no one.
And what if he dies? I would have at the climax. Like, it would have sucked. It would have ripped my heart out. But I would have been okay with it. You know, like, hit me. give me a story that by the time we get to this movie, something happens and it is gut wrenching. Like hit me in the freaking gut with a sucker punch with something. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe feel something like Endgame did.
I had a theory that I posted in a Discord a while ago, with Thrawn, like the Thrawn movie that we're gonna get, because Thrawn is a master tactician.
Yep.
He understands everyone, all their motivations, blah blah blah.
Yep.
And like part of me was thinking what they're going to do in that movie is, he's gonna have an understanding of who and what Mandalorians are. But because Grogu uses the Force, that's a wrench in his plans, and he's not gonna realize that's a problem. And somehow Grogu is gonna be like the missing thing that causes Thrawn's demise or like fails. Like I don't want that to happen, but like it could make sense that like that was a detail Thrawn didn't know was there.
Yeah.
Now, sure, he knows about Grogu.
Sure.
But like, does he know enough that knows that he's with the Mandalorian, and he's being trained as a Mandalorian, and a Force sensitive Mandalorian is not something that he considered?
Yeah.
Like,
I'm a little, so when we did the catch up with Andrew thing, the one thing that we didn't get into was the movies, was like the movie announcements and stuff. Because I remember we joked about it, but we were already like 6 hours into the episode, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm really happy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm so happy Thrawn's coming. Everyone knows me and Thrawn are tight. Not really, but I love Thrawn to death. Thrawn's like arguably some days is my favorite character over Luke. So there you go. I'm super excited for it. I'm really happy for the movie, but I'm a little sad. I'm still really sad because of the what could have been mentality of like, okay, great, we're getting this like Thrawn thing, and every time I see a headline that's like they're adapting the Thrawn trilogy into this like movie and this Mandoverse thing, and I'm like, sick. That should have freaking been 7, 8, and 9. But that's, anyways, I'm not gonna go there. We have a lot more of these hot takes to go through. So okay. Speaking of 7, 8, 9, Kylo Ren's redemption is more believable than Vader's from start to finish.
More believable.
Yep, from start to finish.
I don't think I agree. I don't know. Like it's not unreasonable for Kylo's redemption to happen. Like I feel like we knew that was going to happen. I think with Anakin / Vader, like at the end of episode 3, like one of the last thing that Padme says is there's still good in him, or whatever that line is. Like, so like we know that in the midst of the darkness that he goes into, there's still always that light that he's going to bring back, or it's going to come back and destroy the darkness. Like it's that internal conflict we know is there in Vader. And I think that makes his redemption real. And if you go back to the Mando season 1 behind the scenes, the Disney Gallery, when Dave Filoni is explaining the Luke Vader relationship and why he turns, like, that changes how you understand Star Wars, because it's like Vader had to be the father to Luke that he never had himself.
Sure.
And like it makes sense to me way more than but like with Kylo's, like it still makes sense, but like it's something you just knew was going to happen.
So I think the big difference that you have to keep in mind between Kylo and Vader is that Ben Solo didn't go as far down the rabbit hole. Right? So like Vader did a lot of really bad stuff. Like, yeah, there was still good in him, but like he's got quite the body count, and he did some really terrifying things. Kylo, on the other hand, I feel like his entire story was he was kind of like he wanted to be that bad, but he never really had the capacity to be that bad.
He was just a child in a mask.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, like for real. Like he killed people and stuff, but it's, like, Lor Santeca, that's his name, right? Lor Santeca.
Yeah.
He's done, whatever. Kylo got him and a few other people, but I feel like there's something about Han coming back at the end and Leia playing a part in it too, where I like it more in some ways. Like I'm like, oh, this is there's more heart behind it. Where it's like Vader, to me, the original trilogy seems very abrupt. Like Luke shows up in Return of the Jedi, he's like, give in to the good. I can sense it in you, Dad. And he's like, and then all of a sudden Vader's like, huh, and he picks up Palpatine. Like it just seems completely understandable. Yes. Heartfelt, emotional, amazing, never discrediting that. But it feels more abrupt, where it's like from The Force Awakens, you see that conflict in Kylo Ren, and it continues through the other two movies. So I get it.
Right. I like how you said you see that conflict within him, but like you don't see that conflict in Vader necessarily. Right. We're just told that that's his.
Yeah, I mean, if they had put like eyebrows on his mask, maybe he could have emoted more, or googly eyes or something,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's a limitation of the character, but
But like we were just saying before we recorded it, like Kylo Ren is probably the best part of the sequel trilogy. Like his story, his story arc. So it's like it's a very strong story arc. But like, I think because he didn't go as far deep into the dark side, like Vader's is more like improbable in a sense, even though I said earlier that there was always that light in him, so that was going to come out eventually.
Yeah, I mean, this person wrote his redemption is more believable than Vader's. And it's like at face value, like it's almost like, I'm trying to think of another example. It's like whose redemption would be more believable? I was going to make a Harry Potter reference, but I just realized you wouldn't have gotten it.
No, I've seen every single Harry Potter.
Oh, that's right,
movie.
you have. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And I've seen the Fantastic Beasts movies.
So I literally finished the Deathly Hallows book last night. I finished reading through like literally last night. So
now, if I remember people, I don't know. That's a whole different goal to test my memory.
So, for example, Snape's redemption is more believable than Voldemort's would have been. You know what I'm saying? It's like they're both quote evil, or like maybe Draco's is his redemption would, because like dude's an a-hole, right? Totally like a-hole through and through. But he never fully committed. Like, yeah, his parents were Death Eaters, and he did some stuff. He was there when Dumbledore, spoilers, when Dumbledore died. But like Voldemort having a change of heart is like almost unheard of, unthinkable. Right. And I feel like if we didn't have the context of Return of the Jedi at the end of that movie, I would have been like, there's no way Vader's turning. No way. Like if I was seeing these in theaters, one after the other, I'm like, and I've just seen Empire, I'm like, dude, no way. He's going to be the bad guy for the rest of the trilogy. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a bad guy. Whereas Ben Solo, like in every movie, I feel like there's a point where I'm like, he doesn't want to be doing this. Like, so I don't know. I don't know why I didn't think you had seen Harry Potter.
Because for the longest time I didn't, and then
when did you watch all those movies? Was it while I was on hiatus?
No, it would have been like August or September of 2021. Because
Oh,
I
okay.
remember, I think it was just before we filmed for and reviewed season 1 of Visions.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because I think I started Visions was when I started editing for YouTube, and I think it was the episode before. I was like, I got a big surprise announcement for you guys.
Yeah. I remember that. Okay. Dude, if you ever get the chance, you're probably going to say no, but if you ever get the chance, reading the books is a really good experience. It's
That's what I hear.
they're phenomenal.
But they're also like each 6 inches thick, aren't they?
No. So the first 3 are relatively sized, and then there's a pretty significant jump. But yeah, I mean, but I got a box set of all the whole set for like it was like $40 on sale at Target. It was a steal, dude. So
How about this? You come to Empire Con and you bring those books.
I'll bring
with,
the books,
but you have to come. So
I'll
how much?
I'll have to have another suitcase for the box set.
All right. Next up.
Okay. This is an interesting one. The Last Jedi will be highly regarded in 15 to 20 years.
I've heard this a million times. Here's the thing.
It's just believable.
The only reason that's going to be true is because children who that's their childhood trilogy are going to be the ones in 10, 15, 20 years going to be defending it.
Yeah.
And so, like, is that going to shift? So then those people, when they start having kids, like, they're going to be showing their kids Star Wars, and then that's going to be like,
Heir to the Empire is my Star Wars.
That is true.
Or Rey's Jedi Academy movie, you know?
Right. And so, like, that alone is going to be true. Like,
yeah.
The fandom shift might do that just because those are the movies that a certain generation grew up with, and you and me are going to be dying out eventually. And so, like,
that's depressing.
So, like,
but yeah.
Now,
yeah, so it is interesting because, like, when I was completely oblivious to the backlash of the prequels as it was happening. Completely. I mean, like, when I go back and watch YouTube videos or like the documentaries of people like raging and like boycotting Star Wars and stuff, like I was oblivious. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was just like sick. I was more concerned. I remember I was more concerned. I got an action figure set of the STAP, the battle droid STAP, and it came with a battle droid, and it had really lanky arms. It was a B1 battle droid, and the arms wouldn't stay up on their own because of the hinges. So you would just like put the arms up, and it would just flop over. But it worked really well on the STAP's handles. And I remember I got it before I saw the Phantom Menace. I was more concerned about like what they were going to sound like. So I remember when I was playing with them, when I was playing with it in my room, I made R2-D2 noises because, like, up until that point, I'm like, well, it's a droid. It's going to sound like R2-D2.
Right.
That's what I was concerned about. I wasn't concerned about how it ruined Star Wars. you know, and like even through Revenge of the Sith, I think I was completely oblivious. Like, I didn't experience that's not my Star Wars mentality until the sequels. And so I think you're onto something, you know? But even still, I look back on those movies, the sequels, more fondly now than I did before.
Right.
Not much, but it's there.
This is one of those things where, like, after Episode 8 came out, like, we all hated it. But, like, the thing is, the initial hate for it, you had two directions to go like, all right, this is what we got. I got to accept it and move on, and not let the hate consume me, or let the hate consume you. And that was like half fandom. So, like, you have to choose. Like, you're gonna get some great Star Wars, you're gonna get some terrible Star Wars, but you have to watch all of it. And, like, I have to accept, like, that's what we got, and that they're trying to do justice to us by what they're doing with the Mandoverse stuff, and kind of like hinting at the Outer Rim stuff and the Palpatine stuff, and
Yep.
you know, when that Rey movie comes out, like we're gonna have to watch that in context of the sequels too, because it's the same people. Like we're gonna put that story together in a sense. It's gonna kind of act like an episode 10 in a sense, even though it's not going to be probably.
Yeah.
But like, you have to just like accept that Star Wars is what it is, and don't.
So
get
this
hateful.
there's another one. There's another one that I have, and this is one of the ones that I was going to save to the end, but I think we're in a really good spot to bring this up.
Okay.
Here it is. The best days of Star Wars are always behind us.
I understand what they're saying, but I'm very hopeful for the future of Star Wars.
I am too. I am too.
Like I think Disney understands enough of their failure with the sequel trilogy to pivot and make things better.
Okay.
I think that they get that, and I think they're more careful. I think that's why there's going to be such a delay between Episode 9 and the next movie we get, which you saw that the dates are announced for these 3 movies.
No, I missed it.
So, because a few weeks ago, like Disney announced like all of their movie stuff, like for Marvel and all their Pixar, like everything, and like readjusting dates and stuff. Because when Bob Iger came back, he's like, "We're going to push quality over quantity," and so they readjusted release dates and cut movies for Marvel and all that stuff. And so they changed the dates of the movie apparently, which we never knew. But like originally, it was supposed to be December 2025, December 2026, and then a 2027 movie. But we're going to be getting May and December 2026.
Oh, okay. I did see that. Yeah.
So we'll have 2 movies in 2026 and then a movie in 2027.
Wow.
So
that's a lot of Star Wars in a very short amount of time. But I know.
But they're working years on this.
Yeah.
And then just recently, Kathleen Kennedy was quoted saying that the Rey movie is going to be thematically connected to the Jedi Origins movie, which is 25 years in the past. So I'm guessing Rey is going back to the Jedi roots and trying to reestablish what was originally.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So
I think what this person is trying to say is that it's hard for new Star Wars to compete with your Star Wars.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
For example, one thing for me, there is something about the prequels. There's something about the action of the prequels, the way the lightsabers interact, the blasters, the roughness of the effects, that feels more real than the lightsabers and the effects in these new movies. That's just a personal example for me. So, like, for example, in Obi-Wan, it's a small thing, but when in the Obi-Wan show and in the other examples we've gotten where like lightsabers they'll hit and they kind of slide a little bit and stuff. I don't know. To me, it looks more like, oh, these 2 people had LED poles and they were hitting them on set and they just put the blade over it. Whereas like in the prequels, I remember very distinctly because they used metal poles, there wasn't as much movement. And so when they hit, they stayed and they locked in place. And I remember, like, to me, the prequels feel more like home in a lot of different ways than the sequels do. Not saying, I mean, we all know how I feel about the sequels, but like, I'm not saying I don't like all the new Star Wars. But to me, I get what they're saying in that the thing that captures the wonder and the like nostalgia and the joy of Star Wars are the prequels for me, because that was the one that, you know, I essentially cut my Star Wars teeth on. I mean, like, I had the original trilogy, I had the VHS tapes, but like I almost got those a little too young. And then I had the movie, you know, going to see the movies and the experiences of the prequels. So I get it. I do agree with what you're saying though. I am very hopeful for the future of Star Wars. Now that they have, like you said, they've learned, they went through a poop show, and they realized people didn't really like what they were doing, and I think we're on a really good track now. But I do think that for a lot of fans, there's going to be a Star Wars that doesn't. The new Star Wars isn't going to quite hit the same as this Star Wars, whatever that is.
Right.
So for like adults, you know, older adults, it might be the original trilogy, going to see it in theaters. A lot of times it's like tied. It's not just the movies. It's like also tied to the experiences surrounding, you know, going to the theater or like getting a certain toy or a Lego set. Like I'll never forget. I got the Attack of the Clones, the red Jedi Starfighter that Obi-Wan has. I had that Lego set. It was like one of the mid-size ones that was only like $15 or $20 before Legos were the price of a small vehicle. And I remember I saved up and I saved up and I saved up and I wanted that Jedi Starfighter and I got it. And then my dad took me and I got it and I put it in the car. And I'm like, yes, I finally got this Lego set. I go home to put it together. And so you know how it's the triangle,
Right.
you know, the arrow shape. They gave me 2 of the left wing. I didn't have the right one. And I was so deflated, dude. I remember I was like, dude, no, like I saved up as a kid for weeks to get that like $20. And then I finally got it. And I'm like, oh no. So we had to take it back and we had to return it. But like that whole experience is a part of that Star Wars for me. You know, like I got Anakin's lightsaber before the lightsaber's actually fully retracted all the way into the handle. There was always like a foot of the blade still out of the handle. Do you remember that?
Kind of. I don't know. Kind of.
I had Anakin's lightsaber from Attack of the Clones too, and I remember I got it for Christmas, and my dad made me fight him. I had a few lightsabers, and Christmas morning he took one out. He's like, "You got to beat me to get to the lightsaber." I was like, "Okay," and I went in, and I remember I hit him on the arm one time a little too hard. But like, it's all the tangents aside, there's some truth in that statement, you know. But it doesn't mean we can't adopt a new Star Wars. And I think a Star Wars fan would be they would miss out and they would be wrong not to, you know?
Right. I think like moving forward, I think the biggest mistake in a sense of moving forward is like a few years ago when they announced the High Republic stuff, we thought that that's where they were going to pivot to in the future. It was going to be all High Republic movies and shows. Like,
right.
Like that would have been, I think, the best thing they could have done after the sequel trilogy is let's just start fresh, completely new, like no new characters. That way people can go into it without a bias because it's not going to ruin their Star Wars because it's so far disconnected. And you know, maybe they will do that, like because we have the Acolyte series next year coming out, like but it's gonna be. I feel like they should have done that rather than do a Rey movie and stuff, but that's that.
All right, so we're nearing. We've got I've got 2 regular ones left, and then we've got the good ones. So let's get through these. I thought this was funny. Oscar Isaac. So this is from an interview. I think it was Vanity Fair. This is in relation to when The Force Awakens came out.
Okay.
Oscar Isaac is on record as saying, JJ essentially made a Star Wars movie about people who were normally extras in a Star Wars movie. Think about it, though. No, but think about it. Think about what The Force Awakens is. Like, if you think about it, he's not that far off. Because Rey wasn't like the main character, you could argue, in The Force Awakens.
Right.
Until towards the end. know, until the final
Because
battle.
it was her and Finn the whole time, plus
Yeah.
the villain of Kylo, and then
But like Poe had his own thing going on. He had a subplot. You know, there was a lot of different stories going through. And so it's like, I kind of get it. Like Finn's a stormtrooper. That type of a character would normally be an extra. Poe, as a pilot, separated from being the hero, who is also a good pilot, would normally be, you know, like Biggs or freaking Wedge. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
they had good pilots in. Well, I mean, Anakin was the good pilot in the prequels, and then Luke was the good pilot in the original trilogy. So it's like, I get what he's saying. I just think it's funny that it came from Oscar Isaac.
I don't know. That's funny.
Yeah. Okay. Last one before we get into the other group. Jedi mind tricks are creepy and kind of invalidate the Jedi philosophy.
Well, we did have a whole entire
Yep.
Cantina discussion on this, so
We sure did.
if you guys want to get our full thoughts on the morality and whatnot of a Jedi mind trick, go check that episode out. That was
No, that was like over 2 years ago.
I think it would have been like spring 2021.
We did that episode when I was in North Carolina. I had already moved. I'm pretty sure.
Right, because if I remember correctly, that was Aira that might have suggested that. Hold my tea.
Yeah. I think it was like this. I want to say it was like the second or the third one we did, or fourth. Or
it would have been further than that, because that would have been over a year after we started, and I think we didn't have Discord until January 1st, 2021.
That's true.
So it's sometime in the first half of 2021 we did that. So go check that out.
It's a blur.
But what was the description again?
The Jedi mind tricks are creepy and kind of invalidate the Jedi philosophy.
So I wouldn't say that they're creepy, but they would, I guess, violate the Jedi philosophy, just because they're forcing someone, in a sense, to do something. They're, well, pun not intended, but like,
hey yo, there it is.
But like they're not letting someone have their freedom to make choices. So like I get it, but it's also, if this person has information and you need to, like,
Jeremiah said, ethics out the window. You got what I need.
but like if you're trying to save someone's life or whatever, like,
yeah, true.
Then it's like, do the ends justify the means? Which that's a whole nother moral debate that.
Yeah, go watch the Cantina. Go listen to the Cantina discussion on that.
Right. So
yeah,
I wouldn't say it's a hot take. Like, it's something that I feel like a lot of people, I think a lot of Star Wars fans might not have considered the morality of a Jedi mind trick, but once they're given that scenario, there are most people probably mostly bad, but can be justifiable in certain situations.
Yeah, I mean, your first experience with it is the Stormtroopers, and like, you just know Stormtroopers are bad. Obi-Wan is good. Justified. Stamp. But like, really, like when you realize that there are people, they're not, you know, even if they were clones, they're still people. You know, it's it's a little.
Well, then we just go. I mean, okay, we talked about.
Yeah. Anyways,
but the thing is, like, there's an episode in the Clone Wars where Mace Windu, Ahsoka, and Anakin are both trying to make Cad Bane break.
Yep.
And they're like, you will tell. And he's just like, they're like basically torturing him.
Yep.
The mind tricks. And I'm like,
there's a line, and you're on it. You're towing that line pretty hard.
All right, next up.
All right, so that's the end of the first group. All we have left are the I've got the big kind of spicy one, and then I've got all the more personalized ones.
Okay.
So at the beginning, I mentioned that I had an iced coffee, which I did. For those of you who aren't watching the video, I did have one. It's gone now. But Jeremiah, do you know what also goes with hot takes?
What's that?
Hot coffee as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
You can have hot takes. It's a common fact that hot takes go well with iced coffee or regular hot coffee or tea too.
Hot tea and
cold tea. Yeah.
cold tea.
Can
you do hot tea as cold tea? Like, is that a thing?
Like
if you get the tea from Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea, can you brew it and then put it over ice cubes and it's good, or is that not a thing? I haven't had.
I would have to look at it like a flash brew tea thing, but there are teas that you brew cold. Sure, I think. I don't know, dude. I'm a coffee person. I don't know.
All right. Well, anyway,
if I'm gonna get coffee,
you're gonna get it from where?
Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea, baby.
That's interesting because they happen to be our sponsor for today. So let's take a listen.
Hey everyone, Andrew here. I'm pleased to tell you that the sponsor of today's episode is Wesley Andrews Coffee and Tea. If you don't know anything about Wesley Andrews, you definitely should. They're an award-winning coffee roaster and shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and they make fantastic coffee. The awesome thing is that whether you live in the Twin Cities or not, you can get their coffee beans delivered straight to your door by ordering them online. They even have a subscription service that ensures you never run out of amazing coffee. If you've been looking for some new coffee to try or a way to elevate your normal coffee routine, now's your chance. Head over to wesleyandrews.cc, use the code Empire Radio, that's with a capital E and a capital R with no space at checkout, to get 15% off your first purchase of any bags of coffee or a coffee subscription. I can't think of a better deal. Get 15% off some great coffee, support a small business, and support your favorite Star Wars podcast. In the words of Emperor Palpatine, do it.
Do it.
Yep, do it.
All right.
So
what's up next?
We are entering into personalized and or spicy territory.
Okay.
So for a recap, for those of you who have been listening, we've covered a lot of ground. So I do not fault you for forgetting. So this group will include my own hot take, Jeremiah's own hot take, which supposedly comes in 2 parts, which is great. It comes with Tanner's hot take. It comes with one from a YouTube video that I mentioned before that I thought was very, very interesting. And then I have 2 hot takes that directly relate to mine and Jeremiah's favorite characters. All right. So it's a bit spicier, a little bit more personalized now.
Yep.
The first was like just as many as I could get off the internet, but then these are the special ones. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do our character ones first.
Okay.
We're going to rip off the Band-Aid, and then we can, kind of do whatever from there. But I'll do mine first. I read somewhere, someone said, Canon Thrawn is better than Legends Thrawn. Now, I know you have no context for this. That stung a little bit. It stung a little bit. And then after I got past the initial pain of reading that, the initial pain of being blindly associated to the EU because I love it so much, I realized that they might actually have a point. And I don't want to admit it. This is very begrudgingly. I do not want to admit it. But I think they have a point. And I think the point comes from the amount of time that we have spent with Thrawn in canon is much more than the time that we spend with him in Legends.
Right, because we have 6 novels plus Rebels.
Yep.
And now we're going to have the context of the Ahsoka series and the Mandoverse stuff. So
and I think what's important is that we have 6 novels with him as the main character. So a big distinction about, I don't know how much of the EU episodes you remember, Jeremiah, but the Expanding Universe, the Heir to the Empire trilogy, he is a main character. He is not the main character.
Right.
He's the main antagonist.
Right.
There's a lot of time spent on him, but that time is also shared with Luke, with Mara Jade, with Han, with Leia, with Chewie. I mean, like there's a whole subplot of Leia and Chewie, like talking with the Nogri, on their planet. So it's like, yeah, like you get the sense that he's amazing and he's brilliant and he's BA and he's like, super cool and all that. Like, you get the same stuff from the canon Thrawn trilogies, but with the canon Thrawn trilogies, their strength is that you really get inside his head. Like, you get the inner monologues, you get all of his interactions with the characters. He's the central point of those books. So I love the EU there are. So you have the Heir to the Empire trilogy. Later, there was a prequel called Outbound Flight that came out later, but it was a prequel to that. It actually happened during the Clone Wars era. Anakin and Obi-Wan make a brief appearance at the beginning. And that's when Joruus Sabaoth or whatever, the Jedi, the original, he is in that. He goes out with the spaceship. Thrawn ends up, spoiler alert if you want to read that, Thrawn ends up destroying that whole thing on Palpatine's orders. Very interesting story, but it's still only one other book, and he's not really the main character. He is a main character, but he's not like the central character. And then there are 2 novels at the very end, like the very, very end of the expanded universe on the other side, where they talk about a clone of Thrawn coming back.
A lot of clones in the EU.
Yeah, there's a lot of cloning.
Was it Thrawn with like 2 T's or something like that?
Thrawn, no. Or Thrawn, he had like 3 N's. But no, so he doesn't get as much time. He just doesn't. And I think that had he been given the same spotlight in the expanding universe, there would be more of an argument. It stung. I read it and I was like, no. But then I was like, wait a second.
I'm guessing apart from the Heir to Empire trilogy, those other books you're mentioning were not Timothy Zahn?
Outbound Flight was.
Okay.
Hold on. Everyone can hear my clickety-clack keyboard in the background. Yeah, so Outbound Flight was. Oh no, they're all him. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
So
interesting.
So the duality. Not that it's not a trilogy. The duology.
Couplet. No.
Yeah, whatever. It's a 2-volume series.
Right.
They're Spectre of the Past, and then it was Vision of the Future. Yeah, by Timothy Zahn. So never mind, they're all by him. Sweet. Still my favorite author for that reason. Have a book signed by him and a Thrawn figure thanks to Drew. Shout out to Drew.
About that.
Yeah, it's in my Star Wars cabinet back here. But anyways, so yeah, it stings, but I will say, and I never thought I'd hear myself say this, as a volume of works, I like the canon Thrawn novels as a 6-book set more than the expanded universe Thrawn trilogy.
Right.
Because of how in-depth you get with the character. I like the overall story of the expanded universe books better because there's just more happening and Luke's in it. But I like Thrawn and his centralized stories more. So
interesting.
Yeah. Anyone who has the context of both, leave a voicemail. Let us know.
Yeah.
Like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that bell. Leave a comment. Do just do everything. Yeah. But let us know.
And so today's 4th of July.
Yep.
So first week of August, whatever we record, we're supposed to be doing the Imperial Era Thrawn trilogy discussion for when Andrew's with us. So I still have one more. I just have Treason left to read. I finished the first 5 books, and so I have some interesting. I don't know what a hot take would be. Not a hot take, not on the story per se, but on the production of that first trilogy. Because
like the audiobooks?
No, the Thrawn trilogy, those 3 books.
Yeah.
A little teaser. I don't think those second 2 books were the original story that Timothy Zahn had when he wrote the first book. And I'll get into my theory completely.
I don't know if I would disagree with you. I think I know where you're going, and I don't think I would disagree.
All
But
right. Well,
anyways, we'll get there.
but
We'll
if
get there.
you are listening to this, it's probably after that came out. So go click the link and find that.
We don't know when this is going to go live, but
Right.
go find it if it's out.
All right. Cool. Well, that's your first for Thrawn. What's your?
All right, you ready to come for Ahsoka?
Yep.
All right, it's got your two favorite people in it, Ahsoka and Rey. Here we go.
Oh no.
Okay, this is a pretty well balanced argument. This person says, this is from Reddit. As much as I love Ahsoka, I don't think it's fair that she's consistently held as a far superior heroine than Rey, when she was given significantly more screen time and stories to develop her character, while Rey was given 3 films where she's competing with legacy characters for audience interest. She manages to have a complete, well-developed story by the end of the sequels, or she still manages to have a complete, well-developed story by the end of the sequels.
So the point is saying that Rey has a better heroine story than...
No, I think they're saying that it's not fair for people to say Ahsoka is a better heroine than Rey because you spend so much more time with getting to know Ahsoka than you do Rey. So if you were the thing that I didn't include was like their last sentence was like, but I genuinely love them both and we need to stop comparing them. Like, I'm saying this because I need to say it, but at the end of the day, we should all be friends and like love one another. But
I don't think that that's a fair statement, because I think that the reason she is so well loved is because of all that time and character development. And I don't think you can say that she has an unfair advantage. I think that it's better to say Rey is at a disadvantage. I think that that's a nuanced way of looking at it.
That's fair.
That, and but that being said, I also think that Rey's overall arc is not the best. So like
that's true.
So like even if we had less Ahsoka, it would still be a great story arc, but it's not like Rey is. Can you hear the fireworks going off?
That's what that is. It's fireworks.
It's fireworks.
I thought someone was just like running around above you, but
no.
Nice.
There's park across the street. They have
it's still light outside technically here, so we probably got like another hour, yeah. But then the entire southern sky is going to be set ablaze. 10,000 fireworks.
But yeah, I just don't think it's. I agree that it's unfair to compare them because of the difference of content and stuff that we have between the two.
Yeah.
But I think that, like I said, we can't look at Ahsoka's thing as a negative, because Rey is the one with the negative, because she's the one that she's underdeveloped because we have the least amount of time with her.
Yeah.
So like it's hard to compare the two. So I would disagree with the hot take.
It's interesting because like I don't know if I've ever heard someone just be like, you want to know who's better than Rey? Ahsoka. Like I've never heard someone like bring those two people together that way. I'm sure. I mean, the reason this person wrote that was I'm sure that they had seen that before, so it's out there. Yeah, I was telling Jeremiah before we started recording this that over the past few days I've been watching video essays on the sequel trilogy, just revisiting those. Like I haven't had the time or the energy to like watch the movies, but I was interested in revisiting the stories and hearing what people have to say. And they're going ham, dude, in the background.
Dude, it's gonna be nonstop for another hour. And they get all the big illegal ones from Wisconsin.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember that. I remember everyone going over. They'd go over to Hudson and then come back with trucks full of fireworks. Anyways, but yeah, so I don't even remember what I was saying before the fireworks.
Something about before we.
Oh yeah. I was watching video essays, and it was very interesting to revisit Rey's character arc from start to finish, because, like, I feel like she had a lot more potential Like the character had more potential.
I
But
think that's everybody in the sequel trilogy.
well, yeah, I mean, it's but you know, it's at they were hindered by the storytelling and the writing and the direction that the movies took, and I think Rey has the makings of a heroine of the same level. I'll say it that way. I think she could be just as good with time. But I agree with what you're saying. I think Rey is at a severe disadvantage because we've had Ahsoka since like, hold on,
2008 when the movie came out.
I was literally just looking. Yeah, it is 2008.
So it's 15 years.
So
now, of course, there was a big hiatus in the middle, but
yeah, but we got that, and
people are still rewatching and discovering, and
Clone Wars, Rebels, now Ahsoka. So, anyways, all right. Well, that wasn't too bad.
No, but the next one's harder to swallow.
No. I'm gonna do. Before we go to the ones that were from the three of us, I'll do this next one, the really interesting one. So I'm gonna give this person credit because they have a pretty sizable following on YouTube. I've never seen their videos before, but it's the Goldman on YouTube. It's a video titled "My Star Wars Hot Takes That Will Piss People Off." I will say that the video is very well done. I enjoyed the video. There's nothing like there's some Star Wars content creators. You open up your video and like, ooh, I'm not gonna make it through this video. You know? Have you ever had that experience where like it's like someone's voice
or like I hear the first 30 seconds, I'm like, all right, I get enough. I get what you're trying to say. I don't want to see the next 10 minutes.
This person, shout out to the Goldman. I literally have never seen any of his videos before. I enjoyed the video. Very well produced, well shot, audio and video is great. Good for him. That's what I'm saying. So he did there were 6 and they got spicier as he went. And the last one was he thinks Leia is a completely overrated character. He was like, I'm probably going to lose subscribers over this one. But he started explaining it. And I was like, you're not right, but you're not wrong. So anyways, but this one was really interesting. So I forget. I think this was like in the middle of the list. But he says, if the original trilogy came out after the prequels, they would be hated just as passionately as the prequels were after the original trilogy.
Oh, yeah.
He lists... I didn't think you were going to agree. Okay, anyways. He lists some examples. So first and foremost, everyone who grew up with the prequels, there's an obligation to like the original trilogy because it's the original trilogy, right? They're as a Star Wars fan, you can nitpick it. You can call the first half of A New Hope trash. You can, all you want. But at the end of the day, there's an obligation as a fan to support that thing that paved the way, that blew VFX through the roof and pioneered new trails and all this stuff, right? But there's an obligation. He said C-3PO would have been the Jar Jar of the original trilogy.
Probably.
Yep. The Death Star being defeated by proton torpedo is dumb, which in a vacuum, people still kind of say that nowadays. But imagine if you... So he said this... He said it like this. It's not the original trilogy having the new effects and the prequels having the old effects. It's like, just put them on even playing fields, right? The quality's the same. The stories are the exact same. They're on the same level. Imagine watching the prequels and like all it took to blow up starships and like how hard it was for people to die and all this stuff. And then you get to A New Hope and it's just boop. And then the Death Star blows up. Like, can you imagine that after 3 movies? That's the climax. You know, because like I get it in A New Hope, the original trilogy was limited by special effects and the scope of the production. But like, I get what he's saying. Luke is way too OP. So the way that we perceive Rey now would have been the way that people would have perceived Luke after seeing the Jedi in their prime, and all of a sudden you see him jump. I mean, just like he just skyrockets. Like he's never piloted an X-wing before. All of a sudden he's just like, just
Yeah.
being the best pilot. It's like at least with Anakin, he had pod racing.
Right.
So AT-ATs have a dumb design. He's like, they look really cool, but let's be real. Tactically, that's not a good design.
I don't know. Maybe.
The second Death Star is dumb.
Well, people might agree with that anyway.
Yeah. And then he was like, literally, they just made it. It's the same thing. They just made it bigger. Like that's the most lazy storytelling. And I might add, he is a huge Star Wars fan. This isn't coming from some guy that was like,
right,
kind of like in the background of his room, it was like Star Wars posters. He has a cardboard cutout of Claude, the space slug from Rise of Skywalker.
Oh,
I mean, he's got, it's all Star Wars stuff. So this guy's a fan, right? And then Palpatine's death is dumb and weak.
Yeah.
Maybe. Again, limited by the storytelling capabilities of the time. But if you think about, he is literally the most powerful Sith Lord at the time. Vader just picks him up and yeets him. Like I'm not even talking force throws. With his hands, one of which has been cut off. He has a nub and a hand, and he still gets him. and Palpatine does nothing. It's like when a turtle is on its back and it's kind of flailing, that's all Palpatine, so I just thought it was very interesting that he said it that way. I'd never thought about it, but I was like, yo, yeah.
I think it goes back to like the one you said earlier, that Star Wars will never be good as what we had in the past.
Yeah.
Like it's that same thing. People are always going to compare it to what they had when they grew up or whatever. And
yeah, and I think as movies have gotten more, so movies have obviously gotten more complicated and more intricate in the 40, 50 years since the original trilogy. Like at the time, movies weren't as complicated. So a proton torpedo and a 2-meter exhaust port, sure, there you go, boom, done. They did the thing and it blew up, great. But it's like now when you have movies as complicated as Inception, and culturally we are trained to expect, like, it's not just we can beat Thanos, okay? We've got to find the Infinity Stones again, and then we got to find them on the planet, and then we got to cut off, Thor's got to cut off. It's like these multi-step processes, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not just this simple thing anymore. Sometimes it takes multiple movies to complete. And so
I was also kind of thinking how like the computer screens in the original trilogy, like how they're just like the white lines. It's like now they have to keep doing it like that because they can't do modern screens because then it doesn't make sense continuity wise.
Well, and it's funny because those are the only computer graphics in the whole movie.
Right.
So little Easter egg there. But yeah, it is interesting. I think the original trilogy works so well because of the limitations in the storytelling of the time. But on the opposite, I think George Lucas would have done it differently had he had more at his disposal. So it's like, yeah, he's right, but also George Lucas would have come out differently. So I thought that was interesting. All right, moving on. We have 3 left. Tanner's hot take.
All right. We just had him last week on the podcast, so.
Yep. Shout out to Tanner, a good friend and a friend of the podcast. Disney has relied way too much on the legacy characters. He was like, I feel like they keep bringing back the same characters over and over again, which is fine for the most part of the sequels storyline, but we want to see more than just bad CGI to make them look younger. Give us stuff we haven't seen before.
Okay, well, the bad CGI, that's a hot take right there.
I mean,
Mando season 2 finale, Luke, okay, I get it.
There's some uncanny valley stuff going on.
Boba Fett,
it was
Luke
better.
Was way better.
It was better.
Way, way better. Like night and day difference for me.
Yeah.
Tarkin, amazing.
Yeah, Tarkin was good. Leia did not. Leia from Rogue One, I was like,
It was a little off, but it was still fine. But like,
she had this weird like anime thing going on with her face to me, but
I don't know. I think one of the big criticism I had of the sequel trilogy was that it was too disconnected from the original trilogy. It was just too far off, and it was 30 years in the future.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed too disconnected. So like, they needed the legacy characters there to like make people care. But like with like the Mandoverse stuff, like it's in that time period, and you have a Force sensitive baby Yoda. Of course, it's gonna cross paths with Luke. Like, so it's like, are they like, what does he say? They rely too much? Or the word rely?
Yeah.
I think they're doing.
He said they keep. He feels like they keep bringing them back, the same characters over and over.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
I get it.
It's the same thing, but it's true about all of Star Wars, where it's the same 50 people like through the first 9 movies with all the shows.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's the EU though, because like quite literally, it's like Han, Leia, Luke, Mara Jade starts to become a thing. C-3PO, Lando, like those are the central characters for most of the EU, and then they all have children, and those become the central characters of the EU. But the other characters, the legacy characters, are still there. Like, so I get it. So it's interesting that you say what you said about it being disconnected and wishing that there was more of a connection, because the Thrawn trilogy, the EU Thrawn trilogy, happened 6 years after Return of the Jedi in the EU timeline. Now, I know that there were severe limitations with everyone being older, but it would have been way more connected feeling.
Right.
But it is what it is. They actually could have, they literally could have tied in that trilogy with everything they were setting up in canon, because he would still leave with Ezra, right? Everything up until that point would not change. He would still leave with Ezra. And then instead of, because like in the Thrawn book, in that trilogy, he's just like kind of off in the unknown regions. Like Palpatine sends him out there to gather resources. It would be very easy to just change that backstory and the same exact set of things happen, you know? But it is what it is. I get what Tanner's saying though. Like there were a lot of people on Reddit that were like, I never want to hear the name Skywalker again. Like I'm so done with the Skywalker saga, and I get it. Like that's one of the reasons why.
And they're gonna be really mad when we're watching the Ahsoka series and we meet someone that's called a Skywalker named Cheery or something like that. Like that's gonna really throw a lot of people. If they do that, they introduce a Skywalkers, the navigators. Like,
do you think they will?
I think we're gonna see
Cheery.
Cheery.
I didn't listen to the audiobook.
It's Cheery, but like, Cheery. I think we're gonna see more Chiss, blue people. Thrawn's not gonna be the only one. Like, and
you think we'll see Aralani?
I hope we do.
She's one of my favorite characters from those books. She's so cool.
Like,
anyways,
yeah. So like, I think, and they're gonna be so
by the way,
old.
She's in Outbound Flight.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure. I swear.
No, I know that her name is. Was she also in the Heir to Empire trilogy?
No.
Okay, I can't. I remember she is mentioned in another. I've heard that before.
No. But she was originally introduced in Outbound Flight.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna see a bunch of Chiss. I think if the Grisk are the main, like something like what Thrawn is doing is related to protecting the Chiss ascendancy from the Grisk, like we're going to see a lot more Chiss.
See, they had the whole Grisk thing. They could have given us. Anyways, I'm not gonna rant. I'm not gonna rant.
I'm just saying,
there's so much good happening.
But my point is, they're going, if they show us a lot more chiss, they're going to say the word Skywalker.
I'm sure they will.
And a lot of people are going to be super confused and
I'm
mad.
sure Ahsoka is going to be like, what? And then they're going to be like, oh, here's an opportunity to explain it to everyone in the continuity.
But anyway.
All right. Here, the last two, my hot take and your hot take. If you've waited this long, if you've made it this far into the episode, hopefully these are spicy. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So it's a two-parter, and you'll see where I'm going after I say the first one. What my second thing is going to be. So
okay.
First half is the most underrated Star Wars film is Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
And the most overrated Star Wars film is Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
So that's my hot take. I've been meaning to say that on the podcast for a while, but I never had the opportunity to say it. I think that episode 2 gets way too much hate than it deserves. And I think it's because people just they see the weird dialogue from Anakin and
it's
the weird,
a meme movie, man. It's the memes.
But you take away the awkward romance things and the weird dialogue things between Anakin and Padme. That movie is a good movie. The story is great. The visuals are great. It's not a bad movie. Literally, people complain about 5-10 minutes worth of content in the movie and think it's the worst movie ever made. And I'm like, no, the story is great. It adds some, we get the clones. We get, and then you connect that with the animated series. It just makes that movie way better. And I don't think it deserves as much hate. I think it's top 5, or not, the top half of the Star Wars movie, which I guess would be 5 or 6. So
yeah, right.
But I think so. Then with Empire Strikes Back, I think it's the most overrated, because I think that the Han Leia storyline is the Canto Bite of Empire Strikes Back.
Interesting.
Because
that's a hot take. That's a good one.
Because that storyline does not push the story forward. They just end up in Bespin by accident. And then that's just where Luke goes, because that's where he senses them. And that's just where Boba Fett followed him to.
Yeah.
So, it didn't push the story forward.
It serves more purpose because of where Luke ends up.
Right.
But I see where you're coming from.
So I think, so that being said, I think the Luke or the Han and Leia stuff doesn't add to the story. So I think half the movie is kind of trash in a sense. I'm not saying it's as trashy as the first half of A New Hope, but it's less important to the overall story in a sense.
Yeah.
Because it's just okay, this is how they're gonna get to this end point, so Luke goes there.
Yeah.
And so I think because of that storyline lacks, I think that makes the overall movie not as great as people put it. And I think people's love of the Luke storyline and the Vader reveal at the end, that elevates it so high for a lot of people in their minds that they forget about the Han and Leia stuff that didn't matter. And I just hate every single time when people, what's your favorites? And then everyone says Empire. And I'm like, fine, you're entitled to your own things, but so many people have it as their number one. I'm like,
I will say that my favorite movie of the original trilogy has always been Return of the Jedi. I really don't enjoy the whole Jabba thing at the beginning. I can take or leave that part, but everything after that is just, it has always been my favorite. I love it. I will say that for me, the parts that stand out about Empire, it makes me really want to go back and rewatch that movie. But the parts that stand out to me about Empire are the very beginning and the very end. It's the Hoth scene, sick. Loved that as a kid. Loved the snow speeders, and then the confrontation with Vader, and him training, it's the first third, and then the last third it's the two kind of sandwich ends. I get it. I mean, Attack of the Clones, I think the acting is hard for me to digest some days. It's easier some days, it's harder some days. Depends on how I'm feeling. But it's not Hayden Christensen's fault. It's and Natalie Portman's a great actress. It's just the way the movie was directed. I think he comes across a little stalker obsessive vibes, like there are a few of those I kind of cringe a little bit. I'm like, ooh, Padme, that was a red flag, girl. Like you shouldn't have. We should have never been here. But
but then people have said in defense of Hayden Christensen in a sense, because people bash him for acting, but necessarily, they make the argument that he's a teenage boy who's never talked to a girl since the last time he saw Padme.
It's true.
So a teenage boy is always going to be like that. And I think I said, maybe it might have been last week or a couple weeks on, every guy at some point has had an awkward moment with a girl that they've had a crush on.
Yeah, he's like the kid that grew up super sheltered and wasn't allowed to drink. And then they realize they can, and they just go overboard the first time. I've seen that happen. But it's like that, but with him and girls. It was like he's had no contact with a girl, but up until this point, and now he's like, I don't like sand. It's not smooth like you. I'm like, yo, dude, back up, dude. It's like you gotta take things slow, man. So and then that whole monologue where they're by the fire, the whole time I'm just like, ooh, this is the red flag. Yeah. I mean, I will say I've never really liked the speeder chase at the beginning of that movie. It's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like the beginning, the Jabba thing for me. It's like, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to go onto YouTube and rewatch clips of that one scene. But I will tell you that for me as a kid, one of the highlights of my childhood was the entire lightsaber fight at the end of that movie.
Right.
And the reveal of the clones. When you're like, oh no, the Jedi are about to be killed. And they're like, Yoda comes in, he's got the little laser ball turrets on the clone gunships. And that whole scene is really cool. Yeah. I don't know if it's a hot take, but I see where you're coming from. So I don't completely disagree. So, but Return of the Jedi is my favorite. So that Luke's lightsaber, man, stuck with me as a kid. Love it. Still my favorite lightsaber. Even though now you can get Ezra's legacy lightsaber, his second hilt at Galaxy's Edge now.
I still like his first one with the blaster on it. I think it's cool.
It's cool, but I like his second one a lot more.
The thing is, though, it was underutilized. They do a saber blaster combo, fighting style, would be really cool.
Yeah, it would be like John Wick, essentially.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I really wish that they would do Kanan's. Because I really love Kanan's lightsaber. But I don't want to spend the money on a replica, a third-party replica, because those are always, super expensive. But anyways, all right, my hot take. You ready? This is
the last one of the night?
This is the last one.
All right.
Disney buying Star Wars was the best thing to happen to it since the prequel era.
I can understand why people would take that as a hot take, but now what do you mean best thing for Star Wars?
I think it was I vehemently disagree with it being the best content.
Okay.
I do think that in terms of keeping Star Wars alive the way that it has and front and center in pop culture, it was a necessary evil to keep it around. Here's why. So before Disney bought Star Wars, things had really fizzled out. We had the 2003 Clone Wars animated, the little cinematics that were super cool. Clone Wars was a thing, right? We had Clone Wars pre-Disney. But that's it. We had games, we had some games, Bounty Hunter and The Force Unleashed, Star Wars was happening. but it wasn't happening on this scale.
Right.
And I don't know. I really don't know how long it would have been until we had gotten another movie. You know, George Lucas had a plan, his own plan for 7, 8, and 9. But like, if he wanted to make those movies, he would have made those movies.
I just want to know why he didn't.
Well,
like, I understand
he's
2000
tired, man.
2012 would have been 7 years after episode 3 was released.
Yeah.
So like, in relation to, so then what was episode 6 came out 83. So that would have been 16 years.
Yeah.
So
well, and Mark Hamill has come out and said that Lucas approached him and was like, I think it was in like 2010 or something like that, and was like, "Hey, do you want to do this? You want to be in another movie if I do a trilogy?" So like, I think he was considering it. But think about it from his perspective, right? You're exhausted. You've just gone through the gauntlet of the prequels, being vehemently hated for your vision.
I wonder if that has to do with it too.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't blame. Like, think about what Ahmed Best went through, right?
Yeah,
dude went through deep poop for his role. Like, literally deserved none of it. Think about what Lucas went through as a creator of it. His name's on it, right?
Right.
But then Disney, so you're kind of biding your time. You want it to kind of die down a little bit. I think he probably was like in the initial stages of like, okay, maybe we can do this. But then Disney comes along and they're like, we're going to offer you a metric butt ton of money and you can just rest the rest of your life. Like, I don't blame him. You know, like, how much? It was like, what, $3 billion or something like that?
4.2. I believe half of that was in Disney stock. Well, so he has way more than $4.2 billion.
Yeah, I mean, like, even half of it in cash. It's $2.1 billion, dude. Maybe I sound like a sellout, but like, and I don't have to work again. I don't have to deal with the fans again. Like, keep in mind, like, him doing that turned the fans towards him again. Because like, all of a sudden he's like, it's not me, it's Disney's doing this.
Like, come back, we need you.
Exactly. You know, and of course he's involved in some of the most beloved things that we've gotten recently. He's had his hand in indirectly, you know, through Dave. So it's like, so all I'm saying is, while I mourn for what Star Wars could have been had it gone a different direction story-wise, I think Star Wars is in a better place now as a property. It's stayed central in a way that I don't think it was on a trajectory to pre-2012.
Right.
Because like, pre-2012, you had Clone Wars and you had the video games, but like, if you wanted to know what happened post Return of the Jedi, you had to read the books.
Right.
And that's all you had. You had the books, and I mean, that was literally right before The Force Awakens happened. It was literally the prospect of more movies that ignited my passion for like, okay, well, what else is there? Like, what were the stories that were there? And now we have EU with Andrew, you know? So it's like, on one hand, we have The Last Jedi. We have Canto Bight. You know, we're going to win the war by protecting the ones we love, dummy. You know, we've got the whole thing.
And somehow Palpatine.
Dude, it's funny. It's funny that you say that, because I have a buddy who is in Thailand, JT. I don't think he's ever going to listen to this podcast, but if you do, JT, what's up? He's another guitar player on YouTube that does K-pop covers. He's a really cool guy. And we message in WhatsApp almost daily. And he's a Star Wars fan. And we have a running joke now between the two of us to fit that in as many places as we can. But it'll start that way, and then it'll be like somehow blank return. Like, we'll try to figure out a way to put that into a conversation humorously. It's really fun.
So like, you're telling me like, who, like, at some point some K-pop group is going to come back. So then who's going to be the first one to like hear the news and like text somehow whatever band is returned?
It's happened before. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. It's one of my favorite memes, but So we have all of that, but we still have Star Wars. We have Lego The Skywalker Saga, which was a brilliant game. I mean, say what you want about Lego games. It's really fun.
Oh, it's fun,
You know, we've got Mando. Say what you want about it. It's still really good.
We got Andor.
Dude, Andor's worth it. I mean, we've got it. We saw a return of Luke in a way that we never figured we would, through the shows. So Rebels was Disney.
Yeah.
Ahsoka, so for all of the bad, the money and the powerhouse that Disney is, there's been a lot of good. Cool. So, yeah, there you go. There's my hot take.
Awesome. Well, that's all the hot takes we have for tonight.
Yep.
But I'll probably have, whenever this comes out, I'll probably have it as a Q&A. What is your Star Wars hot take? So think about that.
I want to hear them. I want to hear them.
But we don't know when this is going to get posted. So
I read one that straight up was like the whole Darth Jar Jar thing. They should have made that a legitimate part of the canon. I was like, that's a hot take.
That's a what if. They need to do. They have to. If they do, they have to do that. If they do a what if.
Yeah,
they have to. Like,
I will tell you. I will say this. If it was done, I hate that whole thing. It's just the dumbest thing. It's like all of the meme makers in the universe came together and they were like, who is the one single being in all of Star Wars that would never be this? Let's pick that one and make a meme out of it. But if they did it well and they made him like legitimately scary and powerful, I might be on board.
I just want to know what George Lucas meant in that interview when he said when he said Jar Jar was the key to everything. Like, that's in an interview, like after episode 1 came out.
Yeah.
Or during maybe it was before it came out, he was just saying, but like,
maybe
he had plans for Jar Jar that he
maybe he was talking about the effects. Maybe it was like his first CG character, real CG character.
Maybe. But that's part of the argument of Darth Jar Jar is that there was
either that or he really is the key to everything. Maybe Jar Jar's been behind Palpatine the whole time.
Cool.
There you go.
Well, as of right now, we do not have any voicemails, but I might put one
on the 4th of July.
On the 4th of July. So we might edit in a single voicemail or something. So let's possibly transition over to voicemail time.
It's voicemail time.
All right, so Drew and I are here with some voicemail time. So let's take a listen. If I remember correctly, when Andrew and I recorded, I already pushed the transition button, so that should have already played, hopefully.
Oh, dang, I wanted to hear it.
Nope, too late. But we do have 2 voicemails tonight. So last week, Lucy sent in a voicemail, and then I made a comment that Dazdor sent in a voicemail to her podcast and not ours. But here's the funny thing. So I said that on the podcast. Dazdor listened to that podcast. He's like, hey, I sent in a voicemail that was supposed to go for last week, but like it didn't send in. It didn't come in. And so he sent it in. So I was bad mouthing Dazdor last week
so
when he already was ahead of the game.
Did it?
He already did it. So sorry, Dazdor.
I apologize for Jeremiah's behalf.
But yeah, so this voicemail is like outdated by a week in a sense, but it's still a good voicemail. So let's take a listen to Dazdor's Dazdor's first voicemail. So let's take a listen.
Hey guys, I'm Dave or Dazdor from the Discord. I thought I'd sent in my first voicemail because today I sent in my last VCU submission. The project is finally complete. I think I sent 52 submission total for the project. I had a lot of fun making these. I learned a lot about animation and video editing, all that stuff. It was a lot of fun. I'm a little bit sad that it's over. I was really enjoying making these. I'm definitely gonna keep doing some Lego stuff. I don't know exactly what yet, but we'll see. I can't wait to see the whole thing put together, and that's it. Keep it up, guys. Que la force soit avec vous.
Ooh.
And may the force be with you also.
That's what's up.
So
we
that's
didn't
cool.
clip that. We didn't clip that.
May the force be with you in French.
In
So thank
French.
you, Dazdor, for that voicemail. It's good to hear from you.
You know what you
And
could do, Dazdor? If you're like, what content do I make? Feel free to cut any funny parts or any memorable moments from any of our episodes and make Lego versions of us doing that, like skits of us.
Or I was thinking,
That'd be funny.
He said he did 53 illustrations for the VCU project. And so I think there's a total of 87 voicemails altogether. So he did over half of them.
Over half.
And I'm like,
you could finish.
If you want to do a Dazdor cut, and you just do all of them and see where it goes. Do a Dazdor cut, or maybe you could I don't know, take certain scenes and add things. I don't know. Add more battle stuff. I don't know. Do the Dazdor cut if you want. I don't know.
That'd be cool. But also do Legos of us. For instance, the most memorable moment is Jeremiah saying that the first half of New Hope is trash, which is very sad to even talk and say out of my mouth. But that was never recorded video.
That is true.
So he could do what he thought our reactions would be via through Lego on that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Just a thought, you don't have to.
Definitely, if we get big someday, we're definitely hiring Dazdor to be our animator and video editor and stuff, because I can't remember when he sent in his first submission, but it was probably I don't know, 4 months ago, maybe longer. I don't know, but you can tell a difference between what he did at first and then
originally
where he ended up. So he's done a lot of there's some that he used Blender for. So if you know what that is,
I just know that EmpireCon in a few weeks I'm gonna be able to see it all, because I've only seen a little clip because I just couldn't help myself and I opened up one and then I turned it off
for 5 seconds. This is
as soon as I saw it wasn't just Lego, it was effects. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to watch it all.
So yes, thank you, Dazdor. You're the GOAT.
For sure.
Obviously we love all the submissions that we got from everybody, but you pulled a lot of weight on that, so we're very grateful. We're grateful for that, and so you'll definitely go down in the history books as a big contributor to the Empire. So
yes,
and don't be afraid.
You might even become a moth or something one day.
Who knows? We'll see.
Keep working.
Keep working your way up. But yeah, don't be afraid to send in more voicemails. Love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And who knows what the future holds for Dazdor and his animation. But definitely start a YouTube channel or an Instagram with stuff that you do. That'd be really cool.
Oh, you just do that.
Yeah,
start Instagram or
because there's people that
TikTok
do
or something.
They do cool animation stuff, like Star Wars little shorts. It'd be cool to.
Is Dazdor coming to EmpireCon?
No, he's not.
Oh, dang it!
All right. Well, there's still time to sign up till the 30. Well, how many days are there? Yeah, 31st. So 31st, I extended the $50 ticket.
Dazdor, if you want to come
on down from Canada.
If you come, I'll give you a Lego set. How about that?
I just want to say that we held an international con where people came internationally.
Is no one from Canada coming anymore?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, Dazdor, it's up to you again.
Come on, Dazdor. Pull your weight. All right, cool. All right, that was Dazdor, but we got another voicemail here. Lastly, Lucy, which we heard from last week. So let's take a listen to Lucy.
Hi everyone, it's Lucy. I'm about halfway through episode 4 of The Mandalorian now, and it's pretty good so far. I love that we're seeing Bo-Katan so often and getting some great character development for her. And getting those flashbacks of Grogu during Order 66 was interesting. I like seeing them pass top of Coruscant's mountain. It really connected the past and present of The Mandalorian. But because the Dr. Pershing scenes in episode 3 felt so much like Andor to me, I actually forgot it was The Mandalorian and thought, hey, we just saw that mountain recently in Andor. So clearly, I have memory problems. Anyway, quick question. What location on Earth do you think looks the most like a location in Star Wars? I guess most deserts look like Tatooine, so maybe don't use that as your answer.
Dang it.
I hope you have an awesome day, and may the Force be with you.
All right, cool,
Well, I was
Lucy.
literally gonna say like
Tatooine. Tatooine is like
Arizona.
well, they filmed a lot of Tatooine stuff in Taz. What's one of those desert countries in Africa? Taz. I don't even know.
I mean, all of it was filmed in.
Because you can go to the homestead.
Yeah, you can still go to the homestead and visit it.
What I got to look at a map.
Remember.
I don't know my African countries, but once I see the name.
Come on, Jeremiah, you don't know your African country.
That doesn't help at all. It's either is it?
You could, by you typing in that, you could have just looked it up where it is.
That is true.
Jeremiah's pulling up a map, you guys.
I'm pulling up a map. I thought the country would pop up.
All he has to do is just.
But it's like
it's
like Chad or something. But I gotta type it in. But
Might
anyway,
actually-
Lucy's question: what places in this
Minnesota
world?
is definitely Hoth.
Canada and like a lot of snowy places are like Hoth. So I'm pretty sure they film like snowy mountain areas for Hoth. Because I can't remember or was it all like miniature sets? I don't even remember.
Miniature sets? I don't know.
I would have to.
My brain's kind of all over the place. Endor.
Tunisia. That's what it is. Where is
Tunisia?
Tunisia, but I thought that was like northern Africa.
Endor would be kind of like parts in like South Africa or South America.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, like.
Were they filmed? Did they film that in like California?
Probably like the redwood forest or whatever.
Something like that. But I think Naboo is based off of like places in Italy, maybe.
I could see that.
Because like a lot of the architecture is like that old architecture, and maybe like kind of maybe like Greece a little bit, Italy, that kind of Mediterranean,
Venice,
kind of like where there's more forest, plant life. But
east side or
like I don't know. What else? Like because there's no like cities that look like anything here. Like maybe
if you think about that,
maybe like Hong Kong or something.
Hong
Kong is more kind of like maybe like Coruscant, maybe or some of those like
very
big popular like
modern
bright light cities. Maybe like Hong Kong,
or even parts of Japan too.
Yeah,
I mean you probably do Endor and like the mountainsides of Japan too.
Maybe
very wooded, pretty areas. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a
lot.
But
also, all of it was filmed in Americas, or not in America, I should say, in the world. So
right. So yeah, I think Naboo would probably be the most like based off of like existing city aesthetics. So that's my answer.
Yeah. Good question.
All right. Well, that's voicemail time. So thank you, Dazdor and Lucy.
Yeah.
And anything else, Drew?
I don't think that is.
All right, let's go back to me and Andrew. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that's the voicemails for tonight.
There we go. Thanks for sending them in.
Whoever
People
you
or
were.
persons, you're amazing.
Yep. All right, so let's go over some social media
Hey,
stuff
yo.
and get out of here for tonight. So in the description down below, there's a links.co/Empire Radio. Links with 2 I's, and that's a landing page for everything you could ever dream of for Empire Radio. So links for
I was like,
Facebook,
wait a second. You don't want to overpromise now.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, which we normally live stream every episode.
Yep.
YouTube, follow us on YouTube because video versions also go on YouTube. I edit those and higher quality videos and Twitch streaming, so check those out. Follow us there. We also have other stuff that are not our podcast episodes, like reaction videos and sometimes Judah's toy hunts and toy unboxings and stuff like that. So go check that out. There's our fan email if you want to email us for anything, for any reason. There is a link to join the Discord. Go click that. It's always fun getting new people. And there's also a link for the needlesslynerdy.com entertainment network that we're a part of. So if you like any and all nerdy stuff, Marvel, whatever it is, DC,
I think there's a Harry Potter podcast on the network now, isn't there?
There was.
Oh.
But Gryffindor Common Room was that podcast, and that's by Retta in our Discord. So
hey,
go check that out. Retta's awesome. She's the GOAT. So go check that out. I think that's everything in that list. Close enough. If I forget something, just click the link and look to check. That will check my work for me to see if I got everything. And while you're there, click at all of them. And there's also the thing to send in a voicemail. So send in a voicemail too. We love to hear new people. We love to hear those accents from across the ponds, or I guess across the border too, because there's different accents across into Canada and Mexico. So go do that.
Here's what I want. Here's what Andrew wants. Whenever this goes live, if you're still listening to this, I want everyone to submit a voicemail the next week with your spiciest hot takes.
Ooh.
I want like 12 of them.
Ooh.
I don't know how you're going to coordinate that, but if at least 12 I want to hear some spicy hot takes. Maybe, depending on when this comes out, maybe it'll be an episode that I'm on again and I'll be able to listen to them.
Because if you send in 12 voicemails, we could just do the whole
episode,
whole thing. Another hot take thing.
I mean, like how long has this been? It's definitely been well over an hour and a half, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. We're about an hour and a half. Closing in an hour and a half, or 2.5 hours, I should say.
2.5 hours?
Yep, because I have 2 54s and a 23 right now.
Hey, well, look.
So
we can go all day on hot takes. So
So submit your hot takes. We'd love to hear your hot takes because there's a lot of schmucks on the internet posting whatever, but our fans
that needs to be a shirt with your face on it. There's a lot of schmucks on the internet.
But you're our fans and you're way cooler, and I think our fans love Star Wars and don't hate on it as much as those schmucks. So
yeah. When I say I want the hot takes, give me intellectual hot takes. I don't want the sequels are trash. No, none of that. Give me something that can make me think, make Jeremiah think, break our brains, but also make it a spicy hot take.
Yep.
There you go.
All right, cool. Anything else, Andrew, before we head out?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. Well, you've been listening to a hot take episode of Empire Radio. I'm Jeremiah.
I'm Andrew.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.